Hello, welcome to African Hour. This is a special series of African Hour interviewing leaders in the community. Our special guest today is the Registrar of Deed, Middlesex North, Mr. Dick Howe Jr. Dick, welcome to African Hour.
Thanks for having me, Fru.
You're welcome. It's an opportunity for you to share your views and explain to our viewers what you do, what's the registry of Deeds all about. I will start by congratulating you for your re-election. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And please, could you tell us about yourself and what the Register of Deed is?
Sure. I was born in Lowell in 1958, and I grew up here. I spent the first 18 years of my life trying to figure out how to get out of Lowell. I succeeded in doing that, and over the next few years I realized Lowell wasn't such a bad place after all, so I came back and I settled down with my wife, and we had a son, and we've become members of the community. I actually went through college on an ROTC scholarship. So after I graduated from school, I went in the United States Army for 4 years. When I finished my military commitment, I went to law school. I practiced law with my dad, Richard Howe Sr., who was a Lowell City Councilor for many years. And then in 1994, I decided to run for the office of Register of Deeds for the northern part of Middlesex County. And there were 9 of us in the Democratic primary in that race. The incumbent had not run for re-election. And there were, out of 25,000 votes cast, I won by 8 votes. So we had a recount, and I've been there ever since. So this is my 18th year in the job. It's been, I found it very exciting. The Registry of Deeds is the place where all of the records of land ownership for this part of the county are kept. So Lowell and the 9 surrounding towns are there. And the records go back to the year 1629. Wow. So some of them are deeds from the Native Americans who lived here to the early English settlers. And so there's a lot of history in the office. And it's located at 360 Gorham Street up in the Middlesex Superior Courthouse.
Okay, thank you very much for that explanation. It's good personally to hear that your dad had served Lowell for such a long time, and you are also serving Lowell, so it's really in the family.
Yeah, it was part of my upbringing. My dad was elected in 1965, so I think I was 7 years old when he got elected, and he served for 40 consecutive years. He got elected and then re-elected 20 times. And along the way, he served as mayor 4 times. So I think public service and being part of the community was part of my life growing up.
Great to know that. On that note, I'd like to ask you this, to follow up with this. The new bridge that connects Merrimack Street and the UMass Lowell will be named in honor of your father for his wonderful long-term service to the city of Lowell. How do your father and the family feel about this?
Well, I think we're all thrilled about it, that we're very happy. I think the bridge will be a great addition to the city. And I personally think my dad is very deserving of it. 40 years is a long time.
Yes. Yes.
And I know growing up, we used to take vacations from Wednesdays to Mondays so he could be back for the Tuesday city council meeting. And so I think we're very happy, and we've watched with great interest as the bridge has arisen out of the riverbank, and we're looking forward to its completion.
Well, I would like to commend your dad for working so much for the city that has become home to me and all other immigrants. So please extend my congratulations to him, and also wish him a very peaceful holiday.
Oh, thank you, I will.
You're welcome. Could you tell us, how do you add a name to a deed?
Sure. Most people, the law of real estate, it's pretty complicated, and most people don't really understand it, unless you've been to law school. So I welcome the opportunity to talk about it a little bit. A deed is not like the certificate of title to your automobile. When you buy a car, the Registry of Motor Vehicles gives you a certificate of title. It says, this is the car, you own it. A deed is a document that transfers ownership from one person to another. So if I was to sell you my house, I'd take a piece of paper and say, I, Richard Howe, grant to Fru Nakembeg, property at the street address, and a legal description of it. I would sign it. My signature would be notarized by a notary public, and then I would hand it to you. I would deliver it to you, and that would convey the title to the property to you. Title is not something like a cup or a document. It's a kind of a concept of ownership. And so if somebody, let's say a young woman buys a piece of property, and later on she gets married, and she wants her new husband to become a co-owner of the property. Often she will come into the Registry of Deeds and say, I'd like to add my husband's name to the deed. Picturing that we can take out a pencil or a pen and just write the name in. That's not the way it works. If you want to add a name to the deed, what you really mean is you want to transfer an ownership interest in the property to that other person. So she would really need to go to see a lawyer, and the new deed would say, I, the wife, grant to myself and my new husband the property. And then you would record that deed, and then they would own the property jointly between the two of them. So that's how that works.
Okay, on that note, too, can someone also have be faced in a situation where they want to take someone's name off the deed? Can that also happen?
It can, although it's up to the person whose name is being removed to grant an interest back. So let's say the young couple we were talking about a moment ago, things don't work out for them, so they get a divorce, and the wife wants the property back. Well, her ex-husband now would have to sign a deed that says, I, ex-husband, transfer my interest in the property to my ex-wife. And then he would hand her the deed, she would record it, and that would put the property solely in her name, so she would become the individual owner of it. She can't say, I'm going to take his name off the deed. I only made I gave it to him on the condition that we stay married, and he didn't pay anything for it. Once you've given him the interest in the property, he owns that, and it's up to him to give it back.
So there's no legal obligation that will oblige him to be removed off the deed.
Right. Usually that decision is made by a judge in the context of a divorce case. And if the parties can't reach a settlement themselves, the judge would order the property. And if they couldn't fairly transfer it from one to the other, the judge might order the property to be sold, and whatever money is derived from the sale would be split between them.
Are the records of deeds open to the public, and if yes, how can one access them? Are they online?
They are, and they are public records. They've always been open to the public, but 20 years ago, being open to the public meant they were in a dusty old book at the Registry of Deeds, and you had to physically go there to look at it. Now, every single document, even those from the Native Americans back in the 1600s, are available on our website. And that site is www.lowelldeeds.com. So the name of the city, Lowell, the word deeds.com. When you go to that site, right in the middle there's a yellow box that says search. So if you want to look up your records, you click on that, and it will open up another window that has a space for your last name, first name. You put those in, you click search, and it will bring you to any document that contains your name in it. So anybody that goes to that site, lowelldeeds.com, if they try it and they have any difficulty with it, if they use the email link on it, that email comes right to me. And I'm very happy to help people out in trying to find a copy of their deed or anything like that.
Okay, I'm a homeowner in Lowell, and there's so many homeowners in Lowell. What will happen if I pay off my mortgage and own my property?
Well, first you'd have more money each month because you wouldn't be paying your mortgage anymore. But that's another concept that most people don't understand. When most people buy property, they have to borrow money from a bank. But the bank doesn't hold the deed as security until the loan's paid off. You have the deed. What you do is sign a document called a mortgage. And a mortgage is a kind of a deed by which you transfer an interest in the property back to the bank or to the lender. That interest is the right to foreclose on the property, to auction it off if you fail to repay the loan in accordance with its terms. So if you're supposed to pay $1,200 a month for 30 years and you fail to do it, you default, you haven't upheld your part of the bargain. The bank sends you a letter saying the full amount is due, you have to pay all this money. Well, you don't have the money because if you did, you wouldn't have borrowed the money in the first place. So what the bank can do is go and hold an auction at your property, which is what a foreclosure is. Now, if you have been able to pay off the mortgage and you meet all your obligations, the bank has to release the interest that you transferred, the security interest in the property. And they do that with a document called the discharge of mortgage. So if you pay off your mortgage, the bank will send you a document that's called the discharge. That document has to be recorded at the Registry of Deeds. When that happens, we create a link between the discharge and the mortgage. So anybody looking at the records of your property will see that the mortgage isn't active anymore, that you own it free and clear.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, I've owned my property for 12 years, and this is the first time that this is just coming to me like light in darkness.
Well, good.
This is wonderful information. Thank you for sharing that knowledge
Oh, you're welcome.
with us.
You're welcome.
And I think that is the purpose why we have this program, so that we bring the officials and the people who serve us to come and educate us as to what their job is and what is going on, because I believe that a well-informed community, it's really a powerful community.
It is, and I think one observation I'd like to share with you, and it's about the importance of local government, whether it's the Register of Deeds or the City Council or the school committee. You know, I think most people could tell you who the President of the United States is and maybe who the United States Senators are from Massachusetts, but I don't know if everybody could tell you who the city councilors are in the school committee. But those city councilors, the decisions they make have more effect on the everyday lives of the residents of the city. And in a city council election, there might be about 12,000 people who come out to vote out of 54,000. But in this presidential election that just got done, there were 34,000 who voted. So there's about 22,000 people who voted in the presidential race in Lowell who don't bother to vote in the city election. And like I said, I think the outcome of the city election has more effect on their everyday lives than who's the president. So I think the more you can help inform people about what's going on in the city, the greater the service you're doing to the community. And
the more our officials can take time from their busy schedule to come on our show, it also shows how seriousness they take this, how serious they take this, and they are willing to educate the public. And I really agree with you. What the city hall, what the councilors, the decision they make and the decision that the school committee make affects us in Lowell directly and very closely, so we should pay close attention.
Yes.
And see what's going on and be not only paying attention, but be involved.
Absolutely, and be involved beyond just voting on election day. You have to stay, you have to pay attention to the issues.
Good. I have another question here. What is the Declaration of Homestead?
Well, the Declaration of Homestead is an important thing for homeowners to understand. Under Massachusetts law, you can file a declaration of homestead at the Registry of Deeds, and that protects your home, your personal residence, from the laws of debt collection. So if let's say you're driving your car and you're in an accident and you're at fault, and the person who you hit is very seriously injured, they sue you and they recover $1 million. Well, you only have $50,000 in auto insurance. That gets paid to the injured party. But they still have $950,000 that they can collect. Well, for most people, the only asset that they own that's worth anything of value like that is their home. And so there's a creditor would very likely try to force the sale of your house to satisfy the debt. If you file a homestead, the creditor cannot touch your house. If you have money in the bank, they can take that. If you have stock, they can take that. But they can't force the sale of your house. It's meant to protect the family residence. And there's no downside to recording a homestead. It doesn't affect your credit rating. It doesn't prevent you from selling your house. And it's just a simple form that we have available at the Registry of Deeds. It costs $35 to record it. You can walk in any day from 8:30 to 4 o'clock, fill out the form, we notarize your signature, and it all takes about 5 minutes.
I think this is really important information that I'm learning. I hope I'm not just the only one, and if not, I hope that my audience and viewers, they are taking this very seriously, and this is very good information. I never really understood the meaning of homestead, even let alone know that that was not part of my regular vocabulary.
Well, and the important thing to know about it is when you need it, it's too late to get it, because it only protects against debts that come into existence after you record the homestead. So you shouldn't wait till you have a problem to run up to the registry to do it. It's, you know, some people have a few days off as the holidays approach, and it's a great time just to walk into the Registry of Deeds. As I said, it only takes 5 minutes. We're up at Gorham Street, right near the end of the Lowell Connector, and we're able to answer any questions people will have. And it only costs $35. It's a one-time fee, and it's a very good value for what you pay for it.
Well, with $35, I mean, you know, that goes a long way to give you a peace of mind and also to protect your life.
Yes. Yes.
I know you are very involved in so many things. I remember during the city skill share, you taught a class about tweeting, and
yes.
I follow you online, okay. And I was in your class.
Yes.
Could you tell us, could you speak a little bit about tweeting, please?
Sure. I'm fascinated by technology as a way of communicating and strengthening the community. I think people have this image of people who are on the computer all the time as living in the basement, never getting out of their pajamas. And I think that's a false impression, because I think things like Twitter, Facebook, blogs are able to bring us closer together. I still think it's important to meet face-to-face on the ground, but I think that these tools of social media create kind of a closeness that makes it easier for us to meet in person. And then when we do meet in person, we're way ahead of the game, because we already know what's going on in each other's lives. I got started with a blog, and it's called richardhowe.com, www.richardhowe.com. And it really, in it, I and a couple of other people write about Lowell politics and Lowell history. But beyond that, I'm active on Twitter, on Facebook. I'm trying to do more on YouTube with video. And I think it's a way of promoting the city and bringing the people closer together who reside here.
Well, you talk about bringing the people closer together, and with all this other involvement in media, and I believe you left something out. You are also writing a book.
Oh, yes.
Documenting the history of Lowell and the history of the people in Lowell. Could you please speak about your upcoming book, please?
I will. The title of the book is Legendary Locals of Lowell. It's part of a series published by Arcadia Publishing. That's a company that specializes in books of vintage or older photographs. They already have several about Lowell, but this is a new series and it focuses on the people of the city. And so I began working on this book back in February of 2012. And I found 210 individuals, starting with the guys who came here in 1821 and built the mills, right up to people who were some of the newest arrivals in the city, including yours truly.
Yes.
And I tried to tell the history of the city through the stories of these 210 people who have come here. And so it's people who built the mills, owned the mills, worked in them, the other businesses that tried to fill in for the mills once they left. But then it's about the culture of the city, people who've served the city, whether it's in the military or in public office. And so I'm very excited about it. The book will be published on March 11th, 2013. That's when it will be available for sale. And it will, I think we'll probably have, the Lowell Historical Society has said that they'll sponsor a book signing event. So thank you for asking about it, and thank you for your assistance in putting it together.
On that, and hopefully next time when you come on, you will talk more about your book, and I will have a copy of it.
I'd love to.
And I always believe in historical artifacts and also his history, because there is a wise man once said, if you don't know where you are coming from, if you don't know your history, you will never know where you are going to.
And very profound thing. And one of the, I think the most rewarding thing about researching this book was that the story of Lowell is in many ways a story of immigrants. And what I found was that the experience of the different immigrant groups was very much alike. So whether I was talking to a 93-year-old Armenian woman, or a 95-year-old Greek woman, or a young woman who came from Cambodia, or yourself, or anybody else, the experience of coming from another country and coming here was very similar. And so I think one of the reasons Lowell works well together is that even though we're all from different parts, we're descended from people who come from different parts of the world, the experience is a shared one, and we're able to relate to one another in that way.
And also that's part of our strength.
Absolutely, yes.
I always say that you can travel around the world just coming to Lowell.
Yes, and it's, you know, I opened by saying that I spent 18 years of my life trying to figure out how to get away from Lowell, and that was nothing unique to me. When I went in the Army in 1980 and people would ask me where I was from, I'd say, oh, Greater Boston. And it wasn't because I was embarrassed of Lowell, it's just nobody ever really heard of it. And so it's been since the late 1970s, the 1980s with the National Park and kind of the resurgence of the city that Lowell has put itself on the map. And I think you can go anywhere in the world and say, oh, I'm from Lowell, Massachusetts, and people know exactly what you're talking about. And I think all the trends in the world, not just the United States, are moving back towards cities. Yeah. And I think Lowell is in a terrific position to take advantage of that trend. And I think it's going the next 10 years is going to be a very exciting time to be here.
Well, that's good. Well, I think we are almost through, but I still have another question which I would like to touch it, which is, what are some of the other things you are involved in Lowell?
Well, one of the things I do is I'm very interested in the city's history, as we talked about the book, but I'm the official tour guide of the Lowell Cemetery. The Lowell Cemetery is located right next to Shed Park. It's between Rogers Street and Lawrence Street. It's 81 acres, and it was created in 1841. It's not owned by any church or any particular group. It's a privately owned cemetery. It's still active. Anybody can be buried there. But many residents of the city who have had fascinating life stories are buried there. So in the spring and the fall, I give walking tours of the cemetery. Each tour takes about 90 minutes, and we stop at different graves. And I don't talk so much about the artwork of the cemetery, but about the people who were buried there. And my research tells me that Lowell was the Silicon Valley of 19th century America. If you were talented and energetic and you wanted to get ahead in life, you came to Lowell. So the people who are buried in the Lowell Cemetery aren't the really wealthy mill owners. They all were from Boston and they pretty much stayed there. They just invested their money here. But the people who were there are the people who moved to the city with nothing. But because of their ingenuity and their entrepreneurship, created great businesses and made themselves very wealthy. And I think they felt that the community contributed to their success and they were more likely to give back. And I think they're great role models for people today and people in the future.
Well, thank you very much for your service to our city and all that you do to promote the image of our city. And I would like at this point to thank before we go, is there anything else? I know this is the end of the year coming. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our viewers that we haven't touched?
Not really. I wish everyone happy holidays and Merry Christmas to those who celebrate that holiday. And I think it's a great time of the year and wish everyone well.
On that note, it's my utmost joy to wish our viewers and LTC in particular for supporting African Hour for all these years. We've been on the air for almost 11 years now, and all the staff for helping the program. So I would like to thank the people, the technicians who are behind the scene working hard to make sure this program comes to you the right way. Pete Cato, who's directing the cameras, the 3 cameras, and also our very abled and skilled director, George DeLucas. You are watching African Hour. My name is Fru Nkimben. Happy holiday. Thank you.
Hey!